I'm DJ.
And I'm Andrew.
Welcome to One Shot Tavern,
a TTRPG podcast where we seek out new ways to tell your stories through different systems and games. And today, we are joined by three lovely guests from the Panic Table, an independent Mothership RPG sci-fi horror actual play show over on YouTube and soon to be on podcasts everywhere. Thank you all for joining us. If you guys could just go around, give yourselves a little intro, help me out here. It is wonderful getting to chat with you all, learn a little bit about Panic Table, and learn about Mothership.
I'm Cameron Stripmatter. I host the Panic Table and am the warden of the first season where we play Mothership together. And I got into TTRPGs, titter pigs, as my friend Klaus calls them. Just horrifying. But yeah, Sylviana's shaking her head no. Yeah, maybe we'll try that one out on the B-side of things. I got
Penny's
into...
listening to this going, oh, it's so
yeah,
good.
I played D&D probably like once in high school, and then a lot of time passed. And then in the pandemic, I got really into this grindy OSR game called Torchbearer. If you're familiar with that one, by Luke Crane and Thor Olvasrud. And I played that for like a year with some friends before like they were all like, I don't like this. And I was like... And you know, it was the pandemic, so they were trapped with me anyway. But through that, I kind of learned about the OSR space and started... I liked the idea, even though Torchbearer itself was a very, like, version of Dungeons & Dragons. So it had cool mechanics, but was very grindy. Tra-la-la-la-la. I think I was around when Mothership did its Kickstarter, and I was like, oh, that's neat. Really love the idea. Aliens is, like, in my top 3 favorite movies of all time. And so, cut to probably... I want to say 2 years later, 2022 or something like that. And I was like, people are making cool stuff for Mothership. I'll make this like fun module or something. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and then realized that I was spending a lot of time with my like metaphorical model trains in my basement instead of hanging out with my beautiful wife and family. And so I put that down, and then just kind of went on with my life. Came back a few months later just to see what was going on with Mothership. Somebody else had made a module with that concept and that name. And I flipped out because they had made a ton of money on Kickstarter and just made a really cool thing. And I was like, screw it, we're making a show. And so I just kind of went from 0 to 200 in about 2 weeks. And then, gosh, I mean... yeah, I won't even get into how we got connected. I'll just throw the ball to Sylviana, I guess.
Hi, I'm Sylviana Russo. I am an actual play producer. I am one of the producers for the Panic Table, and I'm definitely the person on the crew with the most actual play experience, which terrifies me. I have been playing TTRPGs pretty regularly for 18 years now, which is a lot of time.
Nerd.
Yeah. That's, yeah, it's pretty wild. I started with Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, which was a great game. It was a great addition. They did a really good job.
And then they kept doing it.
And then they kept going. I managed to just fully skip 4th edition, which, like, we'll never know if I would have loved it or not.
There's a 4th edition? I thought they just went from 3.5 to 5.
Yeah,
yeah,
like
many
Windows
people
8, Windows 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing.
Many people pretend that they just went from 3.5 to 5. But I got really into indie TTRPGs as well. I've written an RPG. I produced a Twitch channel for AMC Networks called Fear HQ, which did a lot of weird horror content, including a TTRPG actual play you may have heard of called Kolok, and a TTRPG actual play you've never heard of called Slasher Town. And I wrote an RPG for AMC called Do Walkers Dream of Decaying Sheep?
I love
where
that
you
reference.
play as zombies. Yeah. You
That's
play
awesome.
as zombies, and it takes place in 2 timelines. So you have dreams about your human life, specifically the day that you became a zombie.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Whoa. You
It's
never told
pretty
me this.
cool.
That's really crazy.
Then
Yeah.
I wrote an RPG
I'm
for
a
AMC.
huge fan of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. So yeah, that's
It's a really good
wonderful.
book. Yeah, so I love RPGs. I love indie RPGs. I had never played Mothership before I talked to Cameron about the Panic Table. But now I have played it once, It's great. Mothership is a cool game, and it's awesome that we made a show about it, and I no longer know what I'm talking about.
Wow.
I'm gonna stop.
It's weird. It occurs to me, Silviana, we've only played once together, and then together we've sat through like about 30 games. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a wild way to experience a TTRPG. So I'm excited to play for you for your second time, or with you for your
Yeah.
second time. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Anwar.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna follow that. My story isn't as cool as Sylvana's. I years and years ago there was this game called Heroescape, and I think that was like my first introduction to it.
Is that
It
like
was like-
RuneScape?
No.
No, it was like a massive board game where you had like all the characters. I remember going to Toys R Us and like begging my parents to buy it for me one Christmas. I must have been like 12 or 13, and then like I always knew what Dungeons and Dragons was. I always like
Well, it's satanic,
was
of
around
course.
the lore. Yeah,
so-
yeah, of course. Yeah.
You
always
gotta
trying
know
summon
what
a
to
dragon through a
avoid.
ritual, yeah. But I never actually played it until like 3 years ago. Like I knew the gist of it, I knew the rules, and then my friends and I had a campaign going. And when I first was getting casted for the Panic Table, one, I had no idea what it was. Like the audition was pretend you're
Nice.
like trapped in like in a planet, and like there's an alien trying to break into like a container. I can't remember what the exact thing was, but when we show
Farewell
up to, like,
transmission.
farewell transmission.
Let's just cut
Yeah.
to the let's cut to that right now. No, I'm just kidding.
I would love to send
The
you
audition tape.
Anwar's audition. I'll send it your way.
Oh,
Yeah.
please do.
Yes.
I don't know who's going to be seeing this, but if you are, I feel very, very sorry for you. This planet is not what we were led to believe to be. It is infested with these hairy, monster-looking squirrel fucks that like to devour people. So, yeah, I really hope, one, you are not seeing this on this planet, because you will probably be dead like my entire team of scientists, and hell, even our fucking robot got destroyed by these things. So much for technology. But yeah, I probably only have a few minutes left to live. Won't be able to send out this message to anyone since all form of communication has also been destroyed by the squirrel fuckers. But if you find this message, run as fast as you can. Or if you're trapped in here waiting for your utter demise like me, I will try to leave a bit of this under this desk somewhere. But yeah, good luck. You'll need it.
But yeah, like I think everybody sent those auditions in, and then when we actually went for the in-person thing, we're like, oh, we're playing a game. And it was just like, in my head, I'm like, all right, this is like D&D. If it doesn't go our way, somebody's better get ready to like do fireball or something and
That's
clear
strat.
this
That's
thing. And then
always makes
yeah,
things better.
little did we know it was this thing is like the complete opposite, is like avoid any and all conflict, run for your life. Everything's overpowered and everything will kill you.
It was
Yeah,
really
but-
fun playing with Anwar at the table because, like, he was like, guys, loot the bodies. He's the only person who had ever, like, played a DTRPG before. So he's like, no, check the pockets first. Every time somebody went down, and everyone else was like, I don't know, my feelings. And he was like, screw your feelings. We need more rope.
That's awesome. I love that so much. I miss having that like reaction in games because I don't really think that way anymore. Like because I've been playing so much more story forward games, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forget to loot things now because I'm just like, we're telling a story together.
It's honestly interesting because pro game master, right? I run games
All week.
8 times a week or something like that.
Wow.
You know? And none of my players loot bodies.
That's a good thing,
And
right?
l-
That means we've progressed as a society.
I
I
think
hope.
so.
No,
I think
because
so.
there are so many items. So, anyways, players, if you're listening, if you kill something,
Loot it.
Drew, this goes to you especially. Please loot the body.
You never know.
That's where all the scrolls are you keep asking for.
That's hilarious.
In the unreleased final episode of the Panic
Which
Table
will
season
be
1
out by the
Unaccompanied
time
Minors.
this comes out.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So this isn't a spoiler. There's a moment. So the other players, they learned from Anwar. And there's a moment in that episode where one of the other characters loots a body. And it's kind of horrifying. It is totally in character. It makes complete sense that he does this. But instead of it being a moment of like, oh yeah, loot the body, like get the stuff so that you can be better, it's like, wow, he's actually going to loot the body. They
Right?
just killed this person and now he's going to loot the body. That's horrible. So it really like both of the play styles
that.
of like traditional RPG, let me like advance my character as much as possible, and the story focused, like we're
Right.
in this horrible, impossible situation. How would I deal with this as a human being? Both really came together throughout the show. And by the finale, you see them sort of like perfectly married into this storytelling gameplay whole.
I
That's
do think
awesome.
when he's like, I loot the body, I'm like, you find 10 gold coins and they're on an asteroid mine in the middle of space or something. I don't know. But
So useful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, you guys have finished up your 10 episode run, correct, of your first season. So I actually want to talk about that. So we've got up top, it's the Panic Table, right? One step lower, Unaccompanied Minors. You know, a little pun there. It's on a asteroid mining colony, and they're teenagers. Love that. And then one step lower, you right out the gate, you said season 1. So not only have you teased that there's more, but there may be other shows too, as well, under that Panic Table umbrella, maybe?
at the end of this season, at the end of episode 10 specifically, we'll be doing a little Avengers style teaser after the credits to kind
Great.
of Sylviana,
That's
we did
awesome.
something I don't think even you know about yet, because I did it
Nope,
without
I don't know
checking
about
with
it.
you first. And so I
It's
think
fine.
maybe
I'm sure it's great.
yeah, so
If
that'll
I
be really
hate it, I'll
exciting.
just tell everyone on social media that I hate it, and you did it
Every
without my
producer's
permission.
worst nightmare.
Oh, good.
It was truly, it came down to, I was sitting here in our studio. I make software commercials by day. That's what Failure Island does for the most part. And so I was bored at work and was watching an episode of Dimension 20, and then I looked around here and I was like, I think we can do this. Let's just do it.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, it was really exciting, mostly because my business partner and the other people I work with don't like role-playing games, and so it was a really easy sell to just make an entire season of the Panic
Oh
Table.
my gosh.
But yeah, credit to Dimension 20. I really love how they roll out stuff, and so we're hoping to make kind of an indie horror hub of things to try
Right.
out some different platforms
Mhm.
and stuff, but then keep Mothership maybe as the core system. So I'm excited to see what comes for the players' characters here in the finale and then beyond, because it totally
Yeah.
ends in a very layered cliffhanger for just the main Unaccompanied Minors narrative. And on top
Uh-huh.
of that, I'm really excited to just kind of explore maybe one or two of the works that are germane to Mothership within the franchise. So
Right.
they have a bunch of really cool stuff in their box set. And even, one thing I'm really excited about doing in that, I've been talking with Watt of Worlds by Watt, who
Mhm.
just made the very exciting Cloud Empress. And I think following that has now just had an incredibly successful Kickstarter for the next step of Cloud Empress, which is sort of like this science fantasy Mothership hack. It's very Miyazaki.
The
meets
art's
Mothership.
insane. I was just
Oh, yes.
watching your video that you did with
That's really
them,
cool.
and I was just like,
Oh, cool.
I need to know more.
Yeah. And so we're toying with like what wouldn't be needed to like do that show justice,
Yeah.
because like if we're doing Cloud Empress, it's got to have like the art department, it's got to have a GM who gets it, because I also don't want
Right.
to be just the like bald
Yeah.
person. I would love to like cycle wardens, find new and interesting voices, etc.
That's awesome.
So
Cameron keeps threatening to let me GM on the Panic Table.
Oh, do it.
it's kind of like the gold stars, right, Anwar? Any day now
Yep,
for Sylviana.
any day it'll happen.
You got the gold stars. They're real. We bought the gold stars. We gave them out. I have one on my jacket.
Oh, that's
So-
I
right.
recall.
So what are these gold stars? I need more context.
Okay.
Uh,
So
'Cause
after
I'd like some.
after we recorded every episode, we did a decompression session, which we called the decompression session. And part of that was that the cast were able to give out a gold star to
Ah.
one of them, and that would become inspiration for
Mm.
future episodes. They could use it to gain advantage on a roll. So it has like an actual
Yeah.
function. But the joke was always that we didn't have physical gold stars because we didn't have the budget for it. And then that they were in the mail.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
joke.
And it was a joke. But for the final day of recording, we did have actual gold stars, and all of the cast members got gold stars.
That's awesome.
I
love that.
I think we literally ordered them on Amazon on like
Like the day before.
the day before we
That's great.
wrapped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get into two things. One, a little bit more of the origin of Panic Table. We've touched on it a little bit, but I want to kind of give just a moment to Cameron to kind of give me the shotgun version of
Sure.
you guys getting together, getting this going. The second question which I can get back to after that is the why Mothership question. So like, I know you were saying that you kind of found it. I'm curious, and a big part of this podcast is why play these different systems and what do they facilitate? What do they host for us in these types of storytelling and interaction with the players? And especially for you doing an actual play, like what about it makes this work for you and why you like it?
Great questions. I'll start with, so the Panic Table, how did that even start? Yeah, I mean, a little bit like the story we're saying before. The Panic Table got started because we were watching these other really top-notch actual play shows come out of Los Angeles, and we're based out of Brooklyn. And I've been looking around here and just wondering, wait, you would think with New York City,
Right.
the greatest city in the world, of course there's going to be a lot of action coming out of here with exciting new games and stuff. And I think that's certainly true for indie game devs, for writers and thinkers. There's lots of really fascinating content coming out of Brooklyn and Manhattan and probably Staten Island. I don't know. But that's not the point. And so it was weird just that there wasn't anything at the caliber of those like really big shows like Dimension 20 or Critical Role. And so our team of like 5 people was like, let's try.
Hi. Hello. What?
Hi.
Hi.
What's happening?
Hey.
Who are you?
Nothing. What?
Who are you?
I asked first.
Okay, let's all say at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Crazy. You didn't say it.
What?
We all counted to 3 and you didn't say it.
Yeah, I don't know you. What's happening?
Why are you so?
Who
God.
are you?
Oh my God! You're so mean. Why are you so mean? I just met you.
Yeah, I know that. Hello?
You hear over the comms.
Hello? What? Who is this?
Do you like oldies? Like oldies.
Elmo?
You can be my hero, baby.
Oh my.
I'm not super convinced you could take away my pain.
Elmo.
And I will lie in this mind forever.
Okay, thank you for that. No.
I never had a chance to tell you this, but since
Right, okay.
I'm on the way out,
Hey,
I just need you to know that
on the way
I
out?
think you're so pretty. And
Thank you. I
yeah,
know.
it would just
I
be a
know.
shame if I
Yeah.
died in this hero's death I'm experiencing presently.
Yeah. Okay,
But
well.
I just want to check and let you know that's my plan.
Okay, well, don't do that.
I love you.
No, wait. Okay.
We approached Tuesday Night Games at the time and said, hey, we love your game. I had played it a few times and was just obsessed. And so we were pretty sure we were going to go in that direction for the show and said, do we have your blessing? And they were like, oh, thank God, because they had just finished they had a hugely successful Kickstarter, but you know, by the time this video comes out, that was like 2.5 years ago. And so they had built tons of hype, won Ennies, all sorts of other cool stuff for what they were up to. And then 2 years pass, right? And so they had huge hype up front, but by the time we had popped out of the weeds with our tinfoil hats with Mothership logos on them, they were at that really fragile stage of going, okay, how do we rebuild belief in what we're doing and make people excited again? They were like, what do you need? We'll send you all of our module manual, just whatever. And so we figured that out together with their blessing, and it's been neat to have the support of Mothership. But yeah, here into the future, we're hoping it just becomes kind of at first a horror hub and then just indie games, storytelling, etc. You know, just figure out what that can be as we pull on exciting new voices in the space. So that's the Panic Table. Mothership is there's games like Mothership, but nothing that has that je ne sais quoi that Mothership has that I find. Like Silviana, I think just after she and I met, she's our producer, but we've also just talked about this. So when Silviana,
I'm right here. I think they know who I am.
yeah, the
your
girl
producer
over there, yeah, Silviana, who I definitely get permission to do things from before we do them, but So, we'd played things like Tales from the Loop or just other like notable sci-fi games and had fun with that. But Mothership to me is absolutely fabulous for a number of reasons. Probably my first one is just the old school layout of things is great. Yeah, I've got it right here. It's fabulous. On the back of the Warden's Manual, there's this little criteria sheet you can read over and sign in a very 1975 manual kind of way. But the first thing it says is there is no official way to play. And I love that because I tried Alien RPG and it's great. The Year Zero engine and all of that is it's a lot of fun, but it's also kind of like crunchy and you gotta like count your oxygen canisters or whatever. And of course, you don't have to. Nobody has to do anything. Games are supposed to be fun. But Mothership lends itself to the fluidity that I was looking for in a system that is story-centric and has scaffolding if you want to use it for, let's see just how irradiated you are as you step into the reactor core. But also, if you just want to fudge it to a dice roll or just go with what the story suits, Mothership accommodates that beautifully. And truly, even just like prepping for this, because we're going to try just a little bit of a hack of some uncharted water here tonight with a module that I'm a little bit making up myself and a little bit stealing directly from the Warden's Manual. But
wonderful. This
thing is chock full of just incredible advice just for gaming, period. Like
that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's like you can see this all over that Bird site or Blue Sky. A lot of really thoughtful, interesting people are looking at this and going, wow, this is incredible, even if you never play Mothership. And I heartily agree. There's just
which
a
I mean
lot
is
of
a big
amazing...
that's like a big thing for the spirit of what we've been doing with the different games we're playing. It's like I have so appreciated the games that approach design ethos and interactive storytelling and do it in a way that is useful pretty much no matter what. Like the ways that you play this game, you can kind of steal and do it in a different game. And it's like, there's the everybody's got a hack of 5e for something. But it's like there's things about these different games that have a lot of evocative flavor. They maybe facilitate storytelling in a unique way, and you can learn stuff. And so that's what we've been trying to do.
Absolutely.
We've been trying to learn. And like I heard probably like 3 or 4 different TikToks that were all like, Mothership, it's incredible. This book is just like a master class in like setting the table. And like I don't know all the details because I kind of was like, oh, okay. I've heard that it's good. I want to play it. I kind of want to go in a little blind and just get that immersive experience in that way. And I heard it's a little bit easier to learn too, so it kind of fit the bill.
Yeah, I guess you'll see tonight. I think too, what's important is like I'm a movie guy. Like that's what I do. I make videos and films and things, and it's very clear this came from a place of people who love spooky movies and science fiction, fantasy, that's just awesome. In general. The way that you are instructed to make stuff just pulls from a deep and apparent love for making cinematic and immersive experiences, and it just shows on every single page. So huge fan.
Can I pitch Mothership to you as a player? Like, here's why you should ask your GM to run Mothership for you. Okay.
We should be getting paid for this.
Cameron, I don't get paid for anything. You know that. I'm a big fan of Godzilla movies. It's one of my favorite franchises. I especially like the fairly recent movie, Shin Godzilla. And what is amazing to me about those kaiju flicks is that the characters are generally regular people. You don't have magic powers. You're not an international super spy who is incredibly lucky and lands on their feet after jumping off of a 6-story building. You're not... There might be sci-fi elements, but you don't have like wild sci-fi powers. You're a person, a disaster is happening, an unimaginable, world-ending, earth-shattering disaster is happening. And for some reason, you are the person who has to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what playing Mothership is like. Your stats are terrible. They're bad. Your stats are real bad, but they're not bad compared to other people.
They're bad
it's
compared
just
to
that
Godzilla.
we as
Exactly.
They're just bad compared to Godzilla, or they're bad compared to your 15th level D&D 5e paladin,
Right.
who in this world would be a literal superhero or potentially a god.
Yeah.
To be fair,
You
they
are
have
a
God on
person.
their side. So
Yeah, well, some of them, but some of them are often on the other side. But that's another matter. But you are when you're playing Mothership, your character is a person.
Yeah.
You can be hurt like a person. You fail like a person. If you try to attempt to do something that you are not skilled at in any way, you will probably fail, which is what Sylviana, would do if I attempted to do that thing.
right.
If you attempt to do something that you're actually really good at, you still might fail. This is an incredibly stressful situation because you have been thrown into this and somehow you're the person who has to fight Godzilla. You're the person who has to deal with Godzilla. And that is stressful. And so Mothership has stats and saves that reflect that experience. And if you do somehow manage to take down Godzilla, that is incredible. It's amazing. What a great story.
Yeah.
And if you get crushed under his giant foot, incredible, amazing. What a great story. And that's how Mothership is played. But instead of Godzilla, it's whatever wild monster, threat, machine,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you know.
So you're writing a
spooky,
Mothership hack
like,
for Shin
otherworldly
Godzilla,
thing.
is what you're saying?
Oh, that would rock.
So
I would.
yeah, I was literally just thinking as you were talking about that, about like you said my skills are terrible for this, right? And my thought immediately went to the first Jurassic Park movie where the little girl sits in front of that damn computer
A
and she
Unix
goes,
system.
I know this. It's a Unix system. And then I thought, oh my God, is Mothership the game that would make a great Jurassic Park game?
Oh, 100%. I think dissecting the Unix system scene is an absolutely fantastic way to introduce somebody to Mothership.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the paleontologist, no weapons training, like slamming his body into the door to keep the raptor
Yeah.
from getting in, as the like totally useless kid just jumps up and down, as the scientist, who's a 17-year-old girl, is like beepity boop on whatever that mouse fit system. Anwar, I feel like you as a player have unique relationship ties to the concept of failure in Mothership. Mathematically.
Oh, burn.
Very big burn. So for those who haven't seen most of the Panic Table yet, I went on a very great spree of critical fails for, I think, like 6-7 continuous episodes where
Yeah.
I thought the table was rigged against me, but it all played out perfectly to the story. Like Cam always says, like the dice told the story. But
Yeah.
going quickly back to Sylvana's point about like being basic, and it's the fear that Mothership like made me feel for my character.
That's
like
awesome.
in all three, like our auditions were playing the game. In all, like in the first one, my mentality was like, yeah, I'm a level 15 paladin. I'm gonna kill this thing. Like I think I was a Marine. Like I got really good stats. Cam's over here like, you can have this nice gun. I'm like, I'm gonna shoot some stuff. I'm gonna go like full Gears of War style on these things. No, they're like, we rolled one thing and the thing it didn't hit, so like this monster like cut off someone's arm, and we're like, oh, this is very real. We're not like this isn't at all like D&D. It made me fear for my life, and I think that's like a unique aspect of the game.
Yeah.
It's just like you can die. You probably will die if you try to like do the hey, I'm gonna fight like.
Yeah.
Cam, I always forget the motto. It's solve, survive, and
Save. Yeah.
save.
Right,
So
and you get
that's,
to
like, the
pick
point of
one.
the game.
Yeah. You don't get all
Right.
of it.
On that point, famously, Sean McCoy, the author of the game, tweeted once that if, like in D&D, you blow through goblins and skeletons, right? That's just like chaff on your way to the Lich or whatever. In Mothership, one goblin is the worst goddamn day of your entire life. It is the most traumatic, most awful event. And people loved it so much that Christian Sorrell of Meat Castle Gameware made a whole module on it called "There's a Goblin Loose on Icarus Station," and it's
Oh, I've seen
amazing
that.
because it's just you and one little shitty goblin crawling around in the vents, and it's the worst. It's
I think what I'm in back to Anwar. I think that one of the things that I'm excited to experience tonight and am curious about is in that player experience. I'm usually the game master, not that I wanted to
Ooh.
be there ever in the first place, just ended up there, and I love it. Invoking fear is not always easy in a lot of these systems that we start out playing in, and whether it's D&D, even like I've run a lot of Cypher right now, huge fan of it. It's a lot more narrative focused, lets me do a lot of things flexibly, but I still have those little shits in my game that, and DJ is one of them, that I can't scare them because they think they're gods all the time. And it's like, I want those moments, like it's the GM moment of like, I want a monologue, right? Like I want to do a thing, then like set tone and like scare the players. So like for you, Anwar, what is it that like feels like, is it just being made of glass? Or like, is it the overall tone, the setting? Like, what are the things that really start to evoke that fear for you? And even if you want to like bring up a moment or something from the game that like really scared the shit out of you.
I mean, all of it really scared like the living hell out of me. Like Cam's setups in every single like audition, and then like I don't want to toot your own horn, but like it's just the setting. Like you're going in there, he's like, okay, you guys are like these miners in this colony, and hey, the colony's collapsing, and it's just like, what the hell do? You have like 2 minutes to escape, and then he starts explaining each roll is like 10 seconds, and you're like, it just like creates like a layer of anxiety where like, I need to get out of here. Like, and once you think you're like trying to achieve something, the dice aren't on your side, and then, oh, look, you're climbing up this way, and somebody's heel got stuck on the fence and they fell and broke their back. Now you have to carry this person up. Or there's just like random moments where he's just like, okay, the biggest threat in this colony is us. And then a flaming horse comes out of nowhere, and it's just like, what the heck is this? Like, it's there's so much in the game for you, like as a game master, that I guess you can throw at your players that can scare the crap out of them. And also that layer of just like, yeah, you're made of glass, you're not a god. I think once you first see like somebody like on your team or like another player just be on the verge of death is when you're like, oh crap, that could be me. I should really like start running. Like,
yeah,
the whole time I'm like, I go into this, like when we started shooting the first episode, we had done a couple of these where it was like a crab got loose and something, and one of the players was like, maybe they freak out about sound, and somebody tried to shoot it, and like the crab just like went through, like this person was like armored and like crushed their armor, and like I luckily got a good speed roll and was able to like pick them up and run somewhere else. But we're not like, even if you think you're decked out, you're probably not gonna succeed in trying to fight one of these things. And I think that's, for me, playing a lot of D&D is like the biggest barrier to like, okay, don't fight, run, because you will die.
I have some advice. For scaring your players. It's really challenging to scare your players as a GM because a lot of fear in horror stories comes from characters lacking agency, feeling that they lack agency. But part of the social contract between GM and player is allowing the players to have agency and not taking that away without their consent. So with that in mind, how do you instill fear without breaking the social contract? And Mothership kind of has the answer, which is make them make a choice. And that's what the solve, save, survive, pick one. That's where it is, right? You make them make a choice. They still have full agency, but they come to understand that if they choose option A, it means that they lose option B.
Yeah.
If they choose solve, it means that they can't save, or in some cases, they can't survive. And that's where the fear comes from as a player, to say, yes, I can do this thing. I can go, I can try, but I know that when I do, I am losing all of these other things because I have to make this choice.
And what's
That's
more
so
human than also thinking, I'm gonna do both. I know the odds aren't in my favor, but I'm gonna be the one to pull it off. And then watching the math, like, sometimes reward that 1 in 100 chance. Sometimes it really like the episode 10 is insane because like after, again, without spoiling anything, I think like Anwar has had like nothing but he even gets this condition where all critical successes become critical failures. So he only like has like a 27% chance of succeeding no matter what he does, period, on anything ever. And like right when he needs it, after honestly, no one wants him to roll ever in the game because it's just always bad. And then like when things are at their darkest, Anwar makes this incredible move to just like as Eddie, this 17-year-old. No, I think you're like 16. You're the baby of the group, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just this little nerdy dude. Saves the day when no one is expecting. Like everyone's like, well, Eddie's dead, and finally, finally, you get that. Oh wow, you can have both sometimes, and so it was really exciting to see those precious moments come out because the prospect of loss or change hang over you in a way that I would say from a warden side, which is what we call GMs in Mothership.
Yeah.
I've found because the guides are amazing because they're like, don't try to scare your players. Like intentionally trying to be spooky is always disappointing, especially for you. If I the first few times I played Mothership, I was crushed that people weren't like, ooh. And yeah, so like setting it up and then saying as little as possible because the players are already trying to imagine what's happening. What does the warden know that I don't? Oh, what's behind that door? And chances are the thing you're worried about is so much gnarlier than the thing I've got planned because it's just like a goblin in the airlock or whatever. But you're like, the skeleton ball from my dance recital dream. And that's not something we should unpack on this and instead really take to my therapist. But
no, that's so good. And so Yana, there's just another area I want to touch on too, more in your producer space. So you've had experience working with Hyper RPG and then Fear HQ, and you've been working kind of in the horror and the TTRPG space. So you ended up working with the team here at the Panic Table. How did that connection get made?
So I met Cameron because I used to work at a game store called the 20-Sided Store in Brooklyn. It sells board games, TTRPG books, magic cards. Back in a past life, that's what I did. And Cameron went in there. The 20-Sided Store is a community builder within the TTRPG space in New York. A lot of people in the space have been there, know the owners. There are a lot of events there. And Cameron came in to drop off flyers because he was doing auditions for the Panic Table. And he dropped them off with one of the owners of the store, Lauren Blanco, who then contacted me and said, hey, this guy came in and told me about this project that he's working on. I think you should contact him.
Thank God.
So I reached out to him. Yep. I reached out to him and we met up. And it just seemed like, we were really aligned on how we felt about actual plays and what Cameron wanted to do with the Panic Table really fit with the stuff that I had done before and the stuff that I was interested in. And it really worked out. I mostly come from live shows. So Kolok and Slasher Town, my two main actual plays, were both on Twitch and we're live. And Kolok, like the Panic Table, was shot in person. So in person, live, with a lot of stunts and a lot of special effects, which is a really interesting and weird thing to do. And then Slasher Town was live and remote. And I think what is special about the Panic Table and about producing the Panic Table is that when you are pre-recording, not only can you edit, but you can also make a lot of choices between episodes because you're shooting in a short period of time. So you immerse yourself in the story and you can create it's an actual play, right? The story is created at the table.
Yeah.
Right? You play to find out. You see what the players do. If you're a player, you see what the other players do. The GM comes in with an idea, the players mess it up, whatever. You play to find out. But that's not the only story crafting that goes into a good actual play show. And Cameron and I would meet in between every single episode to talk about what is going to go into the next one. So nothing in the Panic Table is scripted, but of course, as a GM, Cameron has ideas going into every episode. And many of those ideas are built off of the choices that the players made in the previous episode. And so he and I would meet in between sometimes we would meet in the middle of an episode if we took a break. But we would absolutely meet in between every single episode and talk about story-wise, what do we think needs to happen? And based on the choices that the players made in character, what can we give them to further the story that they are telling? So that by the end of 10 episodes, you get a science fiction story that is not only cohesive with a beginning, middle, and end, but also has character development for all four main characters, and where they really feel that they are the main characters of the story. The story is about them.
Yeah.
And so that might be, in a lot of ways, the difference between an actual play like the Panic Table and your home game.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot.
That's a
And
great
a
way of
lot of
putting
work. Like, there's a lot of producing work that goes into it, which people might not expect for a show that is truly unscripted.
Yeah,
right.
Because the story happens at the table. You expect the story to happen at the table, but people don't necessarily understand how much story crafting goes on behind the
That's
scenes.
incredible. I
That
love
is so interesting because I recently made a TikTok that was talking about co-GMing. And it was like this idea, because like I love telling a story, but also I love to have another brain to talk to, right? Because it's, just having the whole thing on your own, it's hard. And so this podcast is just Andrew and I. And it's just the two of us. We do everything. We edit all our stuff all on our own. We have no producer. Would be great to have.
Did I tell you I have a producer?
Oh,
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
You have to meet Sylviana. She's the best.
Oh, is she available?
So honestly,
Right now.
the way, right? The way you talk about it, the way you talk about producing and talking to Cameron is very similar to this idea of having a co-GM. Where, Cameron is going to sneak off after everyone's, after you've recorded, the players are going to go do their thing, take their break, whatever. And then you guys are scheming to take the story in a new direction. And I love that. I guess I never really understood what it was a producer does. So now I have even more newfound respect for the role of producer.
That's so great.
Oh,
Yeah.
I also do the catering.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, well, what all do you do?
Everything.
I mean, producer is kind of a catch-all term.
Yeah.
So Cameron's also a producer of the Panic
Okay.
Table, as is Jacob Wilson, who's the co-CEO of Failure Island, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Our company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we had 3 producers, and we all had different responsibilities. So it's hard to say, like, this is what a producer does, because ultimately, producer is responsible for making the show happen.
Yep, right.
They could do literally any job, because all of those jobs are essential to make the show happen. What I did as a producer, so I talked about being a story producer. I also handled the catering, and I handled like not working with, but making sure we had like SAG contracts and that kind of stuff. But that's like, someone has to do it. So just if you think about the work that goes into making a show and imagine all the things that have to be done, and someone has to do it. And if you can't immediately think, oh, that's an actor or that's a camera operator, then it's something that's going to be done by a producer.
So this has been awesome getting to know you all and hearing more about Panic Table. I am very excited to jump into Mothership here and learn a little bit more about the system itself by way of experience.
Next up, we have some clips from the actual play that Cameron and the crew of the Panic Table ran for us, and we had an absolutely incredible time. And it's probably one of my favorite actual play experiences. If you're interested in hearing the whole thing, we'll be releasing the audio format right here on the podcast feed. Video adds a lot to this experience though, and if you want to see the full video playthrough, it'll be available exclusively on our Patreon. Make sure you check out the Panic Table and enjoy.
Gemma.
Yeah.
The call came late last night, or for you, perhaps more pertinently, early this morning. In fact, just a few hours ago, as you and your ne'er-do-well, one-time paramour, now adversarial ex-partner, Magnus Osgood of the BioSuite
What a
company.
douchey name.
Magnus. When he was 22, it went with the haircut and everything made a little more sense back in those halcyon days of youth. But all of that's behind you now, as here, approaching a stalwart middle age, you have been informed that Melissa, perhaps the only good thing to come out of that entire relationship, has been found.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Anybody else creeped out by how much these kids are smiling? Because I'm freaked out. They look weird.
I've been smiling the whole time.
I think it's kind of going to be our job to smile like that once we get off this transport.
Okay. All right. Smile.
Do you think
Yeah,
that they
do
are?
it, like, more natural? Can you make it look like you're happy to be here? No, can you do it in your eyes too?
Oh.
No.
You appear to be
Too much.
distressed.
Even from 20 feet away, obviously charismatic character. Shock of curly black hair tumbles down over quite nice respirator.
Elephant.
One that's the elephant trunk there is of almost filigree nature. The sparkling blue eyes. And deep V of a tunic. This character takes off the elephant mask and says, well, as peaceful as a field of daffodils. Look at you swaying in the wind of the sweetening fields.
Anxiety instantly up to a 10.
Go ahead and make a fear save, Gemma. As everybody in front of you falls to their knees. For the uninitiated, I am First Teacher Jared Merriweather, and I welcome you to this blessed institution of higher learning and community engagement. Bless you. Bless you.
Legitimately terrifying.
Oh, good.
It's the third rule.
The third rule, my loquacious little cucumber, is that First Teacher knows best. Trust me, love me, and I will serve you. I am now realizing at the back of my brain that is a direct quote from David Bowie from The Labyrinth at the very end.
Robot speak with dead, is kind of my strat here.
That's my new blog title. That's incredible. You have the discomforting feeling of being alone in this pit, but hey, alone is different when you're synthetic, and you float among the remains of the synthetic dead.
I would
rhythmic
use
fashion.
a little noise like denoising filter or something to try and process through the audio.
Yeah, the thing that brings you back to yourself or your system's kicking in to enhance as it
Yeah.
and a window pops up within yourself as you hear that you were mistaken, actually. It's not voices, it's soft grunting. And it's not particularly human as you hear this sort of... And you, as this drone, move into the path of candles, and you step out of that into what you assume is a sanctuary proper because the ceiling gives way to just shadow. And you turn, and there, kneeling in a semicircle around what appears to be an old-school TV rack, similar to the scene that your colleagues just experienced at the beginning of this as far as posture goes, except that the sound is deafening and blocking out the screams you should be hearing from all of the people quaking and beholding the thing in front of them as they shudder and scream. The video cuts out. The drone is running across the grass, having just lost its shit, and running away from the church, turns just into time to see a very, very large shape burst from the crop line at the edge of the field, and that's all you see, and it cuts out as you disengage. Fear save with disadvantage. We
Oh my
think
gosh,
Mothership
yeah.
fun.
Wild.
It's super good. It's a great system.
There's so much to like. It's also just it's fun to play, system aside for a moment, just in such a a gonzo-y sci-fi. I've done a lot of more serious sci-fi, more space operatic stuff. It's fun
Right.
to play with the Gonzo, but like it still has such clear flavor that we played today, and I adore that part of it. But for the system, I think like when I first was like, we're rolling percentile, I'm not the biggest fan of how like the mechanics of Cthulhu work, Call of Cthulhu.
Right.
So I was a little bit like, oh, all right. But like I liked how simple the rolling was with the app was wonderful. I liked how simple the rolling was, but there was still a bit of not crunch, but like there was still enough to play with. Right? There's sometimes where you have too much crunch and you don't want to play with any of it and it's too much to deal with. And there's sometimes that things are so simple that you kind of get a little bored with the lack of mechanical support and you're just left to storytelling and creativity.
In between.
This balanced a lot of that for me. Like I loved the conditions and the things that you would gain and the trauma responses and the interplay between failure and whatnot. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the nice, like, truly, I had pictured this going much more of like a True Detective season 1 route and less of a Pacific Rim, but huge fan of where things turned up. But yeah,
Look, you shot at me, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're doing it.
So glad when you had the cigarette for me from one of the cultists, because I was just like, finally, I'm gonna have that moment.
Chewing the gum,
lit it
finally
with a
give in to your
camouflage.
sin.
There is, so one of my favorite things about Mothership, I have so many favorite things, but they have this bitchin' bestiary called the Unconfirmed Contact Reports, and it's cool because it's like, yeah, there are some stats for things, but way better than any of that is that it's all anecdotal found footage type stuff for each thing. So there'll be quotes or excerpts from transcripts and stuff about this. So I really wanted to build something around this one. I keep coming back to it as probably for me the most disturbing thing in this manual is on page 17, and it's called Family Meal Number 5. It's an old video labeled Family Meal Number 5, shaky, interference-laden, and static-filled. Footage depicts old-fashioned dinner table, unidentified human figure laying on it. Over the next hour, several large pigs enter the room and consume the figure alive.
Oh, no.
Viewers of this video are consumed by a cannibalistic hunger. They will gorge themselves first on strangers, friends, and family until their stomachs burst, until their hands and feet turn to trotters, until their noses twist into snouts. And there's very little other information, and it's just
so
this
funny.
hideous,
Horrifying, disgusting, but like
it's just
that wrote it for
nuts.
you. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, the minute you gave me the AV cart moment, I was like, I love this, because I was like, okay, there's mutant stuff going on, and it's because of a VHS. I'm like, this is great. This is so excessively weird 90s like sci-fi horror, and it captured that really well.
Yeah, so I mean, and like things like losing Anwar halfway through, I think really like predicated like, okay, there's gonna be some aluminum folding chairs, I think, in part 2 of the adventure as we just figure things out. But yeah,
and I went in thinking,
oh
man, I'm gonna
I've also
be
played games.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went in thinking like, okay, I'm gonna play an android, like I'll just be helpful. I don't have arms and legs in the traditional sense. I won't do a lot of damage. I ended up as a mech.
Pretty
Yeah.
great.
Extremely rewarding. And I mean, like, you could also play this way where like you're like, that's absurd. That's not how robots
No,
work.
you
And
can't
that's
do
fine
that.
too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on the
Totally.
group that you're with.
Yeah,
And
find your
so
fun.
I was like, I think, yeah. For if I wasn't gonna yuck the yum of having a what's the bad guy's name in Die Hard? The
Oh my gosh. Snape.
Gruber?
Gruber, Hans Gruber.
Gruber.
Right? Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, let's just blow up the whole thing. This sounds great. And
Yeah.
and the helipad moment.
Cameron and I like to play a lot of silly games, but you can absolutely play Mothership and take it very seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Absolutely.
it has really sophisticated rules if you need to engage them for like ship to ship combat and like warp travel and
That's really
that
cool.
stuff. Where they're like like you said, there's just enough crunch to where you're like, okay, I'm still not doing like long form division here, but I am figuring out X or Y about how things work. And
Right.
yeah.
Well,
It's,
in one shots lend themselves to a bit of chaos sometimes because you're trying to deliver, satisfying narrative, and it's like it going off the rails and everything blowing up can be exactly what you need. Whereas like sometimes you're like,
Right.
oh, like especially with mystery and intrigue, that's a tricky one, especially for one shot sometimes, where it's like I want these people to find these things, to discover the narrative like hook here, and feel like they earned it, and not that I just handed it to them. And then like, but being okay with it going off the rails and getting crazy can make a one shot work well. So I can see like tonally in the genre how it kind of worked out, and it was a blast. But I also see that like the system didn't require that. The narrative circumstances did.
Right, precisely. I've had like, especially early days with Mothership, I ran into like, because so many times you only have time for a one shot with stuff, and Mothership truly, like, unless you're going big and nuts like this, doesn't lend itself very nicely to one shots. Like even like famous ones like The Haunting of Ypsilon 14 or other, like, if you Google Mothership, the first ones to come up, none of them are like, they're always like really spot on as like 2 or 3 sessions. But if you want to play it like low and slow, but for a one shot, I say double the stress, get people rolling a lot more than they normally would. Really just hand out stress right and left, because in our show, like, it took them 10 episodes, and they managed, I think without too many spoilers, to keep their characters alive for at least up until now in the finale. And all of them now have like stress of 20. And what's crazy is like with 20 stress, if you panic, you have a margin where you drop dead on 20 stress. So even though they have like generally fine HP, you can just die.
Yeah.
And so it's funny watching them go from like joking about failing panic rolls to now they're like, the actors themselves are stressed just because they've really kept their characters going for 9 episodes.
That's amazing.
So yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking time. I know we went
absolutely.
longer than we initially talked about, but the interview on the front end was a blast. We got to talk about a lot of stuff. Thank you so much for bringing some of your team together, Cameron. So Yana, thank you so much for being here with us as well. It was awesome hearing about the producing side and getting into the actual play space and the production end of things, which is another hugely impressive part of your show. We didn't really get to gush about that too much on the front end, but like you guys have done such an incredible job of creating a very professional and excellent looking show that is graphically compelling as a like designer, art dude, and like the editing and everything. It's top notch. They have 10 episodes available on YouTube right now. They're going to be rolling everything out on podcasts everywhere very soon here. You'll be listening to this after their 10th episode has launched. So listeners, if you guys have not checked out the Panic Table, please do.
Whoever said you can't squeeze blood from a stone hasn't been to Lover's Rock. Whoever believes the company won't take everything you cherish is a fool. On an asteroid mine in the heart of the cosmos, 4 young adventurers will test their mettle. Confront the darkness within themselves. Friendships will be forged. Mistakes will be made. Madness will take hold.
The round makes contact with your temple as your head spins back.
I'm like bleeding out of my head. Am I alive?
Uncover the truth.
What is it a person?
You're an android.
In the night, each of you share the same awful dream.
I'm out.
What do you mean you're out?
I'm out. You saw that thing crawl out of there? Are you guys still thinking of going back into that mine?
There's people down there.
Forget them!
Defy the odds.
Everybody's getting punched today!
Fear save.
and gaze into the void on the panic table.
You're having trouble shaking the feeling that somehow things are about to get worse.
We want to thank Anwar, Cameron, and Sylviana for coming on to today's episode and allowing us to take a deep dive into the behind the scenes of the Panic Table. So please go check out the Panic Table on YouTube and all of their socials. The production value is absolutely insane and everything we aspire to. And if you want to watch us play Mothership, audio will be here on the podcast feed. But as I mentioned earlier, the full video recording will be on our Patreon and exclusive there. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you check us out on all of our socials, join our Discord, and check out our Patreon at oneshotstavern.com.